Welcome to our space where talking about the inspiring things with inspiring people is what inspires us. Waiting for you here are the infinite possibilities that creation, collaboration, and connection have to offer. A universe where we see everything through rose-tinted spectacles that help us to keep our faith in the power of imagination alive and well. And now, let's talk. Welcome everyone to this episode of Metralla Rosa. Today we have a very special guest, Randall. He is a British figurative painter whose work shows people, and real places interconnected, mainly the modern Japan and the city of London. Graduated from Slade Fine Arts School, Royal Drawing School of London, and Tokyo University of the Arts in Japan. He has also received over the years, many important prizes. I would like to mention the prestigious BP Travel Award, that is a prize from the National Portrait Gallery. His large canvases shows you, as I said before, real people in their real environments. But one thing that you are going to notice immediately is that subjects and backgrounds have exactly the same importance, not only because of the protagonism they have in the canvas, but also because of the level of detail they show. Thank you so much for being with me today. It's really an honor and a pleasure. And I would like to start this interview reminding you a session a few years ago. I had a session in Art Academy with a painter that I didn't know, and it turned out to be you. I was quite nervous. I went there with a suitcase full of different dresses and shoes, and I remember to have to do many different poses in a table. It was a school room. Classroom. It was a classroom. And I did, I were lying on a garden. I did a pose like holding some bags out of a shop, doing some shopping. And I also remember one playing pool in a table. Yeah. I don't know, but it was a really interesting experience for me. And those photos, you were doing those photos for a painting as a reference. Do you remember that session?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I remember that photography session where I was taking photographs of you for 3 paintings, or 3 or 4. One is a painting I did at Primrose Hill. Another one was a nightclub scene, and another one of a supermarket. You're in all 3, and yeah, they were reference photographs for those paintings.
What was the idea of those 3 different painters? I think mainly women appear on them. Yeah. And I would like to know about the inspiration and the process also of producing those 3 paintings.
Right. It's actually 4, because I've just painted a 4th one of her hairdressers. So there's 4 paintings that you're in, as well as other girls. So
that's good.
I think there's 2 things there. What are they about, and the process. Let me just talk about the process. So I actually usually work from life when I paint portraits. The person sits as you are there now. You sit there, and then I usually paint the portrait in about 3 hours directly from life. But these were going to be full figure, complex figurative compositions, so I needed to take photographs. Usually people are fine with coming to the studio and sitting for me for 3 hours, but to do a full figure in full color, I'd probably have to have about 8 sittings, and just for practical reasons, I was only using photographs for those paintings. And then I just start with an idea in my head, and I just keep manipulating the image until it looks like how I want to look like. That's very kind of reductive way of putting it, but
I love that. I love that because it shows quite obviously you are inspired by people and real places and this sense of urban life, but the fact that you manipulate the details, like for example there's a portrait you did and there's a lovely video in your webpage of a singer, and then
Right.
she was wearing something very simple and
Yeah.
you transform that into something more elaborated. I
Yeah.
love that freedom from a painter point of view,
Right.
because it shows some sort of your desire, how I want to see this, rather than
Right.
how it really is.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we all want to see that in a painter,
Right.
the mind, the inner world of the painter, right?
Right.
So in that case, for example, with this singer, was she happy with the transformation, with the clothes you put on her?
Yeah. I think you're talking about the portrait I did recently of a singer called Tanita Takaram.
Exactly. Thank you for helping me with the name.
Yeah, no, it's I think she was happy with it. Yeah, she said she was happy with it, and I emailed it to her, and she shared it on her social media pages. So yeah, I'm assuming she's happy with it, and I am. I think that's one of my most recent portraits, and I feel like it's. I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a pure portrait painter in the same way other painters are. There's a head of someone and then a neutral background, which is fine. It's just not my thing. So what I try to do is combine, as you very rightly said in your introduction, I try to combine people and places. And the portrait of Tanita Takaram, in a way, the head is almost the least interesting thing about the whole picture, and it's in grain, it kind of recedes into the picture, and the pattern of the clothing and the patterns of the street behind, they kind of come forward and slightly dominate the face. So it's a portrait of someone, but it's also about kind of manipulating reality and flattening patterns, and a combination of figuration and realism with a slight abstraction of reality and kind of reducing things into patterns.
Yeah, and it makes definitely more interesting the whole picture. So you see, your eyes have lots of things. It's like you allow the viewer to do this journey that is a never-ending journey, because the more details a painting have, the more things you can engage with.
Right.
For example, I would like to ask you, because I don't know, is it there any art movement that it's related with your particular style, in the way or in the sense that background and people, subjects, have exactly the same importance or the level of protagonism?
Right. Yeah, it's a good observation there. Thanks. Art movement, not a particular art movement. I think just it's quite a large question that I think just throughout art history there are examples of narrative paintings where people and places are combined. If you go right back to the medieval painting, there are paintings showing people and places, and right up to contemporary art. So I'm a figurative painter that's interested in narrative painting and combining everyday scenes of life with people. So there's no particular one art movement, but I think every period of art I'm interested in a specific way, really.
Many of your paintings, reminds me, those big, probably from medieval times, canvases that you can see in museums, that shows, like Tiziano, for example, that are mythological scenes, and then you see so many details and little. You can spend the whole day trying to see everything, and you still could. So I guess it's a lot of hours. It requires a lot of dedication, a lot of hours, because of all those details. Is it for you very meditative? Because I also see that when you do points to create patterns, as you were saying before, it looks like it could be something I could be doing for lot of time and being very pleasant. Is it pleasant for you, the whole process?
Yeah, mostly. There is a sort of meditative quality to painting, I think. And, some people do yoga or meditate. And I think painting, for me, it does have that kind of quality. Not all the time. It can be stressful, like anything, really. If you've got a deadline coming up or the picture's not working for you. But yeah, it does have a kind of calming, meditative effect. And if I stop painting, for example, if for some reason I've stopped painting for a couple of weeks, I do miss it. And I think it is my own form of kind of like, connecting with something in quite a kind of peaceful way. And I think my lifestyle's like that. I think I make a very good monk. I'm quite sort of, I get up in the morning, I paint, I just kind of, that's my kind of lifestyle, really.
Are you comfortable in silence?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, not too much. I generally don't listen to music when I paint. Although I do listen to a lot of, I listen to a lot of podcasts and people speaking. Actually, I prefer the human voice when I'm painting. But music, I feel like it has too much of a kind of emotive quality, and it kind of puts me in an emotional state.
Oh my God, you and me are quite the same.
Same, all right.
I feel the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
What you feel like? Do you enjoy listening to music? Or?
Yes, but sometimes affects too much my emotional state.
Yeah.
So I prefer engage with words because it keeps me interested. It keeps me thinking, which is better for me.
Yeah.
I don't get emotional thinking, even if I can feel very inspired. But with music, I get lost in states that sometimes doesn't allow me to do the things I need to do.
Yeah.
To be productive, let's
exactly,
say.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, yeah. I think I prefer to be connected on a kind of a more human or kind of...
intellectual process,
I prefer to be connected on an intellectual level rather than an emotional level when I'm painting. Because as you just said, I think either heightening your emotion or bringing it down...
or too up.
Too up or too down. I don't think it's helpful. I prefer to be a bit more steady when I'm just generally in my life and painting. So...
talking about that intellectual engagement, it's quite obvious that you like education because you have a very large curriculum in that regard.
Yeah.
And not many painters, many of them, because of my own experience, I can say that some of them, they prefer just the error and learning by mistake or creating art or the process of doing it every day. Is it for you the academic part of learning art important? Would you recommend to young artists to go through it? How did it affect your own process?
Well, yeah, you're right. I spent about 12 years being an art student. It's quite a long time, by anyone's standards, really.
Yes.
But it just allowed me to develop my work over a long period of time. And 12 years, I find kind of trying to find your own voice with painting, or maybe anything creative, whether you're a writer or musician or a dancer or whatever. It's quite a long game. It takes years to build up your own thing. And those 12 years at being art school just allowed me to keep working and develop my work without the pressures of the real world, And I was quite lucky to be funded and get scholarships throughout those 12 years. So I think one of the biggest struggles many artists have is just finding the time and space and money to keep working. And I was lucky to keep, being funded to do so over those 12 years. And then that allowed me to get to such a level with my work that I managed to sell it all, and now I'm making a living out of it. So without that opportunity of being an art student for 12 years, perhaps it wouldn't have... I think I wouldn't have had the time to develop my own style, really. That has now led on to, becoming like a painter as a profession.
You have a trademark style. You have a style, and that's always a thing that all artists need and want. And somehow for many it's easier to get there or slower, but obviously having a long academic career opportunity to, as you said, develop, it makes you feel probably more secure and comfortable, or is even the gift of having the opportunity to explore is already good.
It's
already good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because of that, trying to understand a little bit your pattern through the arts or your journey through the arts, I saw that at the beginning, some of your early works, beautiful works, and most of them were only buildings
Yeah.
without people.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask you, was it people first, or was it, or places come first for you when in your imagination, in your frame of mind, in your visions? What comes first?
You mean now or then?
Then and now.
Right.
Yeah. Good question.
Well, let's talk about then.
Okay, let's talk about it.
You're talking about the work I made at the Slade
Mhm.
when I was like 20, 21 years
Yes,
old.
I love it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, I had two strands going on then. One is the kind of work you make for the degree course that you show to your professors. And that was the buildings thing of kind of paintings of buildings and streets of London at night. I was a big fan of Edward Hopper, you know, the American painter. And then I had another strand to my work where I was just drawing friends, like socializing with them and like this, just
They're
sitting.
more like sketchy.
Yeah, just as almost like a sideline thing. And I didn't really feel like that was my work at the time. My work was these large paintings made for the degree course, quite ambitious. And then when I graduated, I had, as I think a lot of artists and art students have, when I had a sort of slight crisis when I graduated about what kind of work do I want to make. And I thought about it, and I felt like at that stage I was really interested in more in people than buildings. So I started just continuing drawing people, sitting with them, just starting quite small, really small sketches. And that then led me on to much later combining the portraits with, and then going back to places, combining people and places, which I think it's what I was always interested in. I just, you know, when you're a lot younger, either through lack of experience or you don't think you can do it, or
maybe that.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't thought you could do it.
Yeah, something like that. If you've never done something before, it seems quite hard. But once I just started doing it, combining people and places, of course, it's not like it's anything harder than anything else, really. You just kind of... So it's just building... I think you just build up your confidence through years. The same with anything, really. To go back way before that, when I was like a kid, when I was a teenager...
Yes, please.
Yeah, I wanted to be like a cartoonist or kind of work for Disney.
I was going to say, your work is like a graphic novel.
Right.
It seems out from a graphic novel. Totally, yes.
Well, I take
That's
that...
what was one of the questions.
Yeah, it's a good observation, that, and I think it's kind of true. Back then, I did either want to be a comic book artist, so I loved graphic novels. I used to go out and buy them and collect them. So at that stage, if you had asked me when I was 14, I would have said, yeah, I want to be a cartoonist or a graphic novelist. So it's a good observation, that. And then when I started to get into the education system, especially at A-levels, I was introduced to fine art, painters, and just kind of my interest in illustration and graphic novels was still there, but kind of pushed it more into the fine art direction. And then it just went on a trajectory of oil painting then, because it seemed the most appropriate thing for what I was interested in.
Are you a faster painter? Or you are slow? How is your process? Do you prefer to work at night or during the day? How is your mood when you are painting, apart from what you listen to? In general, tell me about the process in your studio. Tell me about how do you build your work.
Well, it's a good question. It's quite a difficult thing to answer, because no one picture is the same, really. You know, so there's no such thing as a formula to make a painting. And I think if you come up with formulas as to how to make a painting, I think it's a little bit dangerous. You can start to repeat yourself a lot. So every painting is different, but generally, you mentioned there, like, do you prefer a night or day? I prefer getting up quite early and working through daylight, really. When I was a teenager, perhaps like a lot of teenagers, I used to work at night and get up really late and stay up till like 4 a.m. Just now, I find it a lot healthier to get up early and stick to something that actually resembles what would be a kind of 9 to 5, really. In terms of process, it's a very difficult question to answer, that, Carla. It's a very interesting one, but do you have a painting in mind where you'd like me to talk about that specific painting rather than like
those
things
ones
in general?
With a lot of red that you did in Japan. I love those ones.
The ones
They
with
remind
red.
me
Right.
red
Yeah.
and black
Yeah.
lots
Yeah.
mainly. I think there's also some gray or other colors, but they remind me movie that is called In the Mood for Love, which is, I don't know if Taiwanese is the director, is Taiwanese or Chinese.
I think it's Chinese in the movie.
Yeah, but it's one of my favorite movies.
Right.
I love the soundtrack a lot.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, poetic, very slow narrated story.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of red in the lighting in general.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I relate those paintings of you with that movie.
Those, you're talking about those specific 3 paintings, right? It's a triptych, 3 paintings.
Yes. For example, those ones. How was the process?
We're going back quite a while now. That's kind of over 10 years ago. But those paintings, I was living in Japan at the time. That's probably another conversation there. I used to just walk around Tokyo a lot and hang out with friends in Tokyo and meet people. And Tokyo is such a layered city, really, in terms of all the different places within the city and the different cultures within the city. And those 3 paintings you're talking about, a triptych, red and black, was based on the red light district in Tokyo. And my university that I studied at was very close to one of the red light districts.
Lucky you.
No, I didn't. It's not what you think. It's not like I visited the red light districts.
No, it's good for a painter, isn't it? Very stimulating.
Yeah.
Very mysterious. I don't know. Even more if you are not from the city. Yeah,
it's I just think Tokyo is a really exciting visual place, and
exactly.
And it has.
That's exactly what I think.
Yeah, and it has.
I haven't been there, but you have, and you were living there for 10 years.
Yeah.
As you said, that's an interesting conversation. But yes, finish with the process, please. I'm just excited about Tokyo.
Well, I think we can talk about the process and Tokyo and the Tokyo at the same time, because they relate. So with the painting you're talking about, it was just inspired by because it's all my paintings are usually inspired by the thing I'm surrounded with. So now I'm surrounded by London, so I'm painting pictures of London. Then I was living in Tokyo for 10 years, so I always respond to things that are around me. Really, I don't think I could ever paint something that I've somewhere I've never visited or is really far away. I need to be kind of immersed in it. So all my Japan paintings really come from being kind of surrounded and immersed in Japanese culture for 10 years. And it's just a process of osmosis each day, really. It kind of filters its way into you. And then you just start coming up with ideas. So that one was about the red light district, really sort of specific kind of places in Tokyo that have a kind of, the red and black suited it because the kind of mood of the place. And
it's also kind of classic, the combination of colors. For comics, for visual.
But you like red and black, don't you, right?
I just I love red in general, but it's a color that with time I every time feel more and more comfortable with. Right. I think when I was younger, I maybe wasn't feeling. It's just a very strong. It's like a statement color, right? And you choose those colors in those paintings for obvious reasons.
Yeah, although I've also done a lot of paintings in black and white and grey, and the reason for that is there's lots of reasons, but I quite like the atmosphere created when you make something in black and white and grey. And I think the red painting you're talking about, the red is a very dominant visual theme, but if you get rid of all colour in a painting, you're just focused on the composition and the 3-dimensional form. And if I don't have a really good reason to use colour in a painting, I prefer not to. I'd prefer to use black and white. So the black and white paintings of Japan, I've done some of London also. There's a kind of certain feeling of silence or solitude to them, which is kind of in contradiction to the places I'm trying to show. Very busy, noisy, urban streets. And then if you reduce those right down to greys, it kind of gives this quite sort of silent, static feeling, which
Yes.
and I kind of enjoy that kind of contrast between the two. And also, if you make something in black and white, it kind of removes it from reality, because we don't see in black and white, we see in color. So I quite like removing things from reality a little bit by either changing the color or flattening the space or distorting scale, things like that, really.
Yes, I love the distorting scale and would like to ask you. I have seen some of your in your website. You have some videos where, for example, in Japan, where you appear in a bar or somewhere a street food place, and you are doing some sketches, and then you can see how those sketches become a very detailed, complex painting, huge in scale compared with the original sketches.
Yeah.
So is that part of your process normally? Was it part of your process back then?
Yeah. Well, that noodle bar painting. It's called Mr. Kitazawa's Noodle Bar. That was. I used to visit a lot of they're called ramen bars, the kind of noodle bars, and I used to go to them. I used to eat out all the time in Tokyo.
I guess you miss it.
Yeah, I really miss it. The food's incredible there.
I can imagine.
Yeah. You'd love it. You should go to Japan.
I will.
You'd
I
really
will
love it.
one day. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's an exciting place. So I used to eat out a lot. And again, what I said earlier about being immersed in something every day.
Yeah.
You then, if you're a visual person, you then can't help but respond to that. You know, I think that's where the kind of impulse, the creative impulse comes from. If you're a photographer or a painter or a writer or musician, sooner or later you're going to get an impulse to respond to things. So if I'm visiting kind of noodle bars all the time every day and eating there, at some point I'm going to want to respond to that. And that painting was in response to just eating at those places a lot. And there's one specific place I used to go to in a place called Shibuya in central Tokyo, and that noodle bar was inspired from that. The final painting is kind of partially based on that specific place, but I've changed a lot, and I do that a lot in my paintings. I kind of change things around to suit the composition, so they're never like 100% accurate.
When you change the things, or when you find the detail, because I can see a lot of details in the painting, like the faces, very detailed.
Yeah.
Do you do that from imagination, or you also work with photos, or do you try to remember very well how people used to look?
Are you talking about the faces or the background? Or?
The faces.
The faces.
Because it's difficult to get details of faces. When you
not really. No. Well, I always work from life. So what I do is I come up with a design for that noodle bar painting through a combination of sketches outdoors and the real world, coming back, taking some photographs, combining references from photographs, from sketches, kind of.
So it's a very collage kind of process.
Yeah, collage is a good word. Like collage, either literal or kind of metaphorical.
Yeah, metaphorically speaking, it's like a collage of
different places, different people. Yeah,
and the process in itself is like a collage.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. It
sounds like fun.
It's
fun.
Really
fun.
It is fun. Yeah. I've never really done one painting yet that is exactly the same as the place. So it's always been changed in some way to suit the composition, really, because you're making an artificial composition, really, and it needs to work as a design. I think that's more important than having a really accurate representation of exactly how a certain street or area looks. So to go about the noodle bar painting, I came up with the designs. When I was finished with the design, I look at also, if you have that painting, it has a slightly kind of a very slightly, not deliberate at all, but almost like a Last Supper kind of feel to it, with people around the table.
Yes.
I look a lot at kind of classical paintings and a lot of Renaissance paintings, etc.
Somehow they
feed. I mean, I'm not religious, but it sometimes feeds its way into my work. So Renaissance paintings, a lot of painting pre photography really was either based on religion or mythological subjects. So just looking at those images, a lot kind of seeps its way into my work. So anyway, I came up with the design, then I sketched the design onto the canvas, like a large canvas, just in a line. Then I get models into the studio. So if you were modelling for me, you'd sit there, I'd paint your face straight onto the canvas. All the faces are from life, about 3 hours per head. And then the rest of it, I would kind of either make up or use photographs and copy onto. And then it would just be kind of this patchwork thing. And also, like, if I was painting you and I asked you to come to my studio, paint your head, if you didn't have time to come to sit for me again, I'd get someone else I know to model for your arms, for example. So sometimes the kind of Frankenstein quality to the people where they're composed of 3 different people, their hands, arms and face. But when you see the final thing, you can't really tell. It looks like
And that's good, because at the end you are not limiting yourself to, okay, I don't have the model, how can I do now? I have seen so many artists getting annoyed by the fact that they can see the feet very well, and I'm like, but just imagine what's happening there. Or maybe because I don't paint, it's easy to say, but I guess also you need to push sometimes your limits. Okay, I can't see the feet, but I need to come out with a solution, because anyway I see everything else. So
are you talking about your experiences when you model? Because you model
when
for
you model, and sometimes
classes.
you feel like people feel really frustrated because they can't see a particular something. And in my head, because of the way I think, I'm always thinking when people complain, what's the problem of not seeing a little part when you're seeing most of it? You can always complete with imagination or resources of any kind, whatever. But
I think that those painters you're talking about are probably purely observational painters. That's what's in front of you, and I'm going to paint this in whatever way I want to. And that's not me. No, I rarely do that. I haven't done that for a long time, really. I think lots of people start off like that, but I'm not that interested in just documenting exactly what something looks in front of me. So if I was to do a portrait of you, I
love that of your style, of your because I feel like there's a statement, there's a proposal. Can I say that?
Right.
Like there is a style, because I'm putting a lot of what I think it should be, or what it inspires me, or a lot of things I take from here, from there, to build something.
Yeah, they're really artificially constructed, my images, even if it looks very real. I mean, I did one of Piccadilly Circus in London. I did one of the Thames Bridge area in London.
Those ones, let's talk about those
and Primrose Hill.
But first, I would like to finish with the Japan chapter. What was interesting, not only about living in Japan, but learning art in Japan? Do you think you have came across things that you couldn't have experienced in a country like UK?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I always, just when you said that, I always remember I was talking to someone, I had been in Japan for like 7 years by that point, and someone said to me, oh, you're not concerned about being away from your peers in the UK and being away from the art scene in the UK. You're not concerned that you're losing touch with all that. And I thought about it, and I came to the conclusion, no, I wasn't concerned at all. I remember someone else saying as well, he was a musician in Japan, he was saying, well, the reason I left the UK is because I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to get sucked into the London art world. I wanted to do something different. And it was the same reason I went to Japan, really. I wanted to make work about a culture that's very different from my own and respond to that. And Japan seemed like it ticked all the boxes. It was a really interesting culture, very far away from the UK. So, the
language is completely...
Yeah, everything's different, really.
Yeah.
Although there are certain behavioural similarities with UK people and Japanese people. Well, there's a certain level of politeness that I think is there. There's a certain reserved... These are stereotypes, of course, but as a generalisation, there's a certain sort of reserved quality. There's a certain politeness to it. There are massive differences as well. I think Japan considers the group more. You consider your whatever group you belong to, whether it's a company or a university or a school. You have more of a consideration for the group as a whole. I think here we're very much focused on ourselves, but these are massive generalizations.
Even though I think UK, it's community oriented, but
Right.
also you promote a lot individuality as part of your culture. So sometimes it's a so sometimes it's contrasting and not always goes well.
Yeah.
But those principles are present in the British culture.
Yeah.
The need of community
Right.
and the need of individuality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think Japanese are quite the same.
Yeah. Everyone.
Also, they don't stare at people on the street.
No, they don't. You're very right. No, that's completely true. They don't.
Because Caribbean do.
Do they? All
Yes. It's actually a woman can get offended if you don't look at her, you know?
Really?
Yes, of course. You want to be seen.
Is that right? Oh, okay.
You need to go there next.
It's true they don't stare in Japan.
They don't stare at
it's,
people.
It's too again. They're too polite, really. So, you know.
But are they more imaginative when they approach the art? For example, I feel maybe it's a presumption, maybe it's an assumption that is not correct, but I feel like in South America,
which is where you're from, right?
I'm from Venezuela, from South America. The process of learning art is very intellectual,
right,
and also very imagination have a huge place in the learning, the learning process. Yes. Right. Yes, people stand because the conditions of life push you all the time to the edge. Right. So people come with very crazy ideas most of the time.
Right.
This is a point of view, but I ask myself, Japanese learning process in a university of art.
Right.
Is it different from what it could have been in UK? It's more playful. Maybe.
Well, it's very difficult to answer that, but I think. Well, the level I went straight into a master's level because I did my degree in the UK, and then I went straight into masters in Japan. Then I did a doctorate. So I think at that level, you're kind of left to get on with it yourself a bit anyway. You're treated as kind of like a higher level. So you don't have that much tutor contact with people. Okay. You're kind of given a space to work in. You get on with your work, and then you sometimes talk with your tutor. So there wasn't so much, there probably is not as much learning going on as perhaps one may think. It's just really a space to work in, and then there's tutors to speak to if you want to. And also I think at that age, I was kind of like in my early 30s by that point. I was like a mature student. I kind of knew what I was doing by then. I kind of knew what I wanted from my time at university. Whereas I think like a lot of very young students, when you go into university at 19-year-old, you don't quite know what you're doing, I think. I mean,
it's just natural, normal.
Yeah, but when you're a bit older, I think you're a lot more focused. So in response to that question, I don't feel as though I can adequately say really, because I was just very much me getting on with my own work. But from what I saw of other Japanese students in the university, I don't know, I just think everyone's different. I don't feel as though I can say any one statement about that, I'm afraid.
Okay. And then you came back to UK.
Yeah.
And was it easy to adapt coming back from... 10 years is a long time.
Yeah.
A whole decade.
Yeah.
And what personally you feel you had to work to reinsert yourself into the market, into the life of London?
Yeah.
Was it easy? Was it difficult?
It was very difficult. Yeah, it was really difficult. How long have you been in the UK now for?
12 years.
12 years.
I'd like to say 12, but probably it's even more now.
Right.
I get stuck sometimes in numbers. But I think
if you left, it would be hard for you, right?
Yes, it would be. It would be
culturally,
very hard.
even if you went back to Venezuela, it would be a culture shock for you.
I
Right?
think at this point, I don't belong anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm used to be a stranger.
Yeah.
I'm used to be a kind of a foreign.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Inside of my conscious, it's how I see myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you went back to Venezuela, if you had to go back to Venezuela now,
Oh,
you'd
no,
find it difficult, right?
That would be very difficult, but
Yeah.
especially because the conditions of the
Right.
country
Okay.
I left and the
Yeah.
country I'm going to find
Right.
are really different.
Right.
But also it would be difficult in any circumstance, of course.
Yeah.
So you want to... Now you are interviewing me. So this is your answer.
How many interviews have you done, by the way, of this thing?
34 by now. Yeah.
Are you going to keep going? How many? What have you got? Like a name, like 100 or?
No, I think we wanted to work with seasons, but at this point it's just like let's keep going and do as many as possible, because at the end of the day the idea is to reflect the work of many interesting, amazing artists as you. So
thank you.
there are so many in London, everywhere in the world. So why to stop? We don't have to stop.
Yeah, you've had a lot of interesting people on here.
But
who would be your ideal person to
you're
interview?
not, now we are coming back to my interview.
Okay.
Later I'll let you interview me. And what were we saying?
So coming back to London was really hard. It was there's a term for it, reverse culture shock, and it very much was. London had changed quite a lot in those 10 years, and but it was always my plan to come back to the UK, exhibit the work. The whole point of making work in Japan about this very different culture was then to bring it back to my own culture and exhibit it and get a response to it. So that was always my plan, and it kind of worked. I did very well out of it. All the work sold. You know, I got good prices for it. It helped because I got this thing you mentioned at the beginning called the BP Travel Award, and that
was in 2012.
Yeah,
was it?
Yeah. The exhibition was
What
in
was
2000.
the painting that got the prize?
The noodle bar painting we were talking about earlier. That kind of got the prize, but I had an interview and. They gave it to me. So the year after, I exhibited a series of Japan paintings based on that work I made during the year between getting it and the exhibition. And that really got me a lot of attention, got my Japan work attention. And then that helped with, I had 2 solo exhibitions after that. And so getting that award was really a good step, a step back into the London art scene. And then... yeah, my plan kind of worked, but I think the challenge after that was right. I'm back in the UK now. I've done the whole Japan thing. What am I going to do now? So just exactly the same as when I arrived in Tokyo. Really, I just started making work about things that were around me and kind of based on London, really, people and places.
And let's then talk, please, about the London Portraits, which is an amazing project that includes many well-known people in different areas of the culture, very relevant, all of them. There's a comedian, there's a narrator, there's a novelist, an animator, a poet, many different interesting artists. How was the project? You approached them and you asked them if they wanted to see it for you, and then they had to choose a special place for you to put on the background. But tell me about more especially about how came the idea, how did you come with the idea, and how easy was to make it in terms of production, like getting in contact with these people, getting time from them for them to come to your studio, I guess. Was it in your studio?
Some of it was in my studio, some of it I went to them.
Yes, I saw one in TV, Channel 4.
Channel 4 with Jon Snow, yeah. So,
yes, please. I think it's a very ambitious project. It was.
Yeah.
So I want to know if it was your idea, someone's idea.
Yeah, no, it was my idea. It's a good question, thank you. It was quite a logical thing, really. So I'm interested in people and places. I did that in Japan the whole time, you know, narrative pictures of modern Japan, modern Tokyo, combining portraits and places. So I was back in London, right, what am I going to do now? I'm still interested in people and places, so I'm going to do that in London now. And I think you can't really disassociate a place with a person, really. Kind of, your environment partially kind of molds you and sculpts you. And even just from a narrative point of view, I'm interested in pictures that partially tell a story. As soon as you combine a person and place, you automatically have a story there. So when I came back to London, I wanted to continue my interest in narrative painting, putting people in places. But rather than, for example, getting friends to sit for me and asking them, what's your favourite place in London, I thought it may be an interesting project to write to people who I was interested in, and ask them that. So I wrote to about 100 people, and then 15 people said yes. And then I either went to their homes or workplace, or they came to my studio, and I asked them, well, what place in London has personal or professional significance for you? They chose it, and it's also interesting being given something. It's quite a good restriction to have, right? Because I think if you have too much freedom as an artist, possibly you can start to repeat yourself. But being forced to paint, for example, St. Paul's Cathedral, or the skate park on the South Bank, not places I'd normally paint.
Bar Italia in Soho.
Yeah, Bar Italia. Jeremy Thomas,
the dinosaurs for
Nick Park.
Yeah, Nick Park.
So being given places was quite an interesting project. I thought that might be an interesting limitation to put on myself, having been given somewhere rather than me choosing it. Because I think if you're always choosing, you tend to be attracted to similar things all the time.
Totally, yes.
Yeah, but being forced to paint somewhere where like normally you wouldn't be that interested in, I think is a positive thing.
And do you think that those chats where you were painting and they were telling you why those places were interesting or important for them or significant made also a kind of connection that made the portraits easier? Because you could understand the nature of the face in front of you, not only as lines and features, but as someone with interest, with dreams, with memories.
Yeah, exactly. Like you just said, really. As I said earlier, I'm not just interested in the human face. I'm interested in the things that are associated with that person. So, for example, a place, or their history. And part of the reason I'm interested in putting a portrait of someone in a specific place is because I think it says more about them than just a head against a neutral background, for me anyway.
And if you were one of your subjects,
right?
Let's say you finished that project, London Portraits, with yourself as self-portrait. What would it be the place? What would it be the space you would choose for
in London or anywhere?
In anywhere.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? You know, when you ask me, ask me,
I don't know how these people came with places.
Where would you choose?
It is very difficult. Don't know.
Because you can choose loads of places, can't you? Depending on what you want.
Maybe the Victoria and Albert.
Why would you choose that?
The lamp that is there when you enter.
Oh, right.
At the entrance of the museum. I don't know. I just adore that space. I love that place.
But you could probably choose another 20 places, right?
But you?
Me?
Yes.
I probably would choose somewhere in Tokyo, just because I have fond memories of it, and I still feel attached to the place, and it would be a nice memory to have if someone was to do a portrait of me and put a Tokyo background in the background. I'd be happy about that.
Do you do self-portraits?
Not really, no. I've done a couple of paintings. I did a nightclub painting in Tokyo called Roppongi Nightclub, and I put myself in that, kind of dancing in the background. And there's a couple of crowd paintings. I put my head like popping up, but not really, no.
Did you paint your face from a photo or from life?
From life. From life.
How do you do that? With a mirror in that case?
With a mirror. Yeah, I really I really enjoy painting people from photographs. I much prefer when they're sitting in front of me.
Talking about that, that very also ambitious project you did in London Bridge, which is it's huge, the scale of the painting, or at least that's how it looks.
Yeah, it's big. Yeah.
And I think that interests me about that painting, apart from the fact that it's impressive, and you did so many people, all of them were painted from life, and there are how many faces? 70?
I don't know, something like that.
A lot of faces.
Yeah.
But I feel like the space is there, beautiful, with that turquoise water at the back. And all the faces in grisácea, in grisaille.
Yeah.
And they aren't connected.
They aren't.
They aren't.
Right.
The faces are there,
Yeah.
like floating.
Yeah.
But is that how you feel about London?
You know what? I think maybe it's a really good point that I do feel a little bit disconnected to London a little bit. So if that's what you're implying,
yes,
some way,
but
yeah.
Implying, no, asking.
Asking, right.
I shouldn't be implying anything, but that's how I feel. That's what I feel when I see that.
Do you feel disconnected from London?
No, I feel when I see that painting.
Yeah. Well, it's a really interesting point. You know, I think if we were going down that road, when I got back from Japan, I did feel really disconnected from just UK society. I mean, when I say I was in Japan for 10 years, like literally, you know, for the whole 10 years, I only spent 2 or 3 months outside Japan. So I was very immersed in it. And I got back.
Learning.
Yeah. And it's you know, it was a big culture shock. Because I did feel disconnected from my environment for quite a few years, you know, longer than I expected, really. I expected, maybe 1 or 2 years I'd feel comfortable. It was quite a few years I just felt very sort of not really part of what's going on around me. So I wonder if that fed its way into the paintings, actually. It wasn't conscious, though. I didn't say, right, I'm going to make a painting about feeling disconnected from my environment.
I know, I guess it's not conscious.
No, but lots of things aren't.
But I feel like it's a lot of things are together but not connected.
Right. Well, that's an interesting comment, yeah.
And I think it's probably why it's so interesting.
Right.
Because somehow it breaks the normal dynamic of things.
Right.
So you have all these faces, but they aren't interacting with each other in any way.
Right.
And same with many other paintings you have done in London, right?
Yeah. Well, same in Japan as well. It's the same thing, really. You know, big cities are quite alienating, and people, you know, generally strangers don't really interact with each other in big cities. So
especially big cities like Tokyo
and
like
London, really, you know,
New York, probably.
So I think that's the nature of cities. Anyway, that's the way I experience cities. You know, maybe someone else would see cities differently, but they're quite overwhelming, sort of alienating places. And the paintings I make, maybe they're partially about that. They're not about anything really in my paintings. They just are what they are. But I think your own experiences of life, that's the interesting thing about doing anything creative. I'm sure it's the same with you. Whether you want it or not, your experiences are going to seep its way into your work, right? You know, even like this.
Fortunately, yeah.
Even this, the fact that you enjoy talking to people, that, you know, that will be something to do with your psyche, won't it? You know, it's not something I would choose to do, like interview people, but that's.
But you do it very well.
Yeah,
let me tell you.
Thank you. No.
Just to escape from your own
No, I'm not saying the reason for that. So yeah.
Yeah, and I also feel like I have been in your classes. You as a tutor and me as a model. One of the things I always notice is that you don't paint when you are teaching. And another thing I couldn't not notice was that when you were painting your subjects in this London portrait project, portraits, you weren't talking with them. At least not in the moments that we can see edited in the final editing of the video.
Right.
So are you someone very super focused that when you are doing something you prefer to not do another thing?
Yeah.
Are you not comfortable with doing many things at the same time?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Like keeping things on rows. This here, this here, this here.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Because I would like you to paint me at least once, and you never do it.
Well, sorry, I will next time I do a project, I'll certainly invite you.
And I also would like to talk about your technique to get the right skin color, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't worked with any other art tutor that does that thing you do, to do first the whole face in green,
right,
to then slowly find the right skin color. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, well, that's called Verdaccio, and it's a Italian technique that comes sort of pre-Renaissance. It goes back to medieval times really, and that's
Wow.
So, yeah, it has a long history. It's been done for hundreds of years. So the principle is really that red and green are opposite. They're complementary colors. So if you mix pink colors, for example, and put it on a white surface, talking about light-skinned people here, it can look quite artificial, a little bit sort of candy-like or bubblegummy. But if you put it on top of the opposite color, which is green, it somehow calms down or neutralizes the intensity and warmth of pinks. And I find it helps because it's so hard mixing skin color and making it look realistic and making it look good. Anything that helps really. And so it's almost like sculpting it first in green and then tinting the sculpture. You can do it in grisaille also, in grey. So so you separate it really. You create the form first with light and dark, and then you tint the underpainting with your colours. And with regard to the Verdaccio technique, it's I just think it makes it look a little bit more real than
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Right.
And it's interesting because you see a lot of resistance from the students because they can't believe that it's going to happen. But it does happen.
Yeah.
At the end, you find the right skin color.
Yeah.
It looks more verosimil. There's more verosimil.
Yeah.
It looks more real.
Yeah, I think so.
Real.
Yeah, there's a kind of like transparency to it, and it kind of if you find the sweet spot where it really works, it can.
Do you like teaching art? It's something do you enjoy it?
Yeah. In kind of small doses. I wouldn't want to, and I couldn't be a full-time art tutor. You know, I like getting on with my own work, but you know, a day a week, it's nice to chat with students that are interested in art and pass on whatever information you may have to help them. Yeah, it can be great. It all depends on the students, really.
What's the more frustrating aspect of teaching for you?
The frustrating aspect of teaching. It's a good question. Have you ever taught anything?
No, I'm just curious because I guess you need a lot of patience.
Yeah, you do need patience. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's constant kind of requirement to be patient, you know, and even especially if you're not having a good day and you feel quite impatient, you can't be. You have to be very patient and kind of understanding with the students. So in terms of frustrating, I don't know really. Kind of good question. I need to think about that more. Yeah.
And I don't know. I have the feeling that in a conversation ages ago, you told me that your dad was Italian or is Italian.
It's a more complicated because you are, right?
My mom.
Your mum from Naples.
From Naples, yeah.
Right. It's a bit more complicated.
Because your name doesn't sound very Italian.
No, my birth name is completely Italian. Carlo Lombardi, yeah.
Oh, so tell me about it.
I thought I came
that
here to talk.
That sounded Italian, I don't know why.
I thought I came here to talk my painting. I'm happy to talk about it. It's a bit more complex than perhaps yours.
If you don't want to talk, we won't.
No, we can talk about it. It's fine. So did you grow up with your Italian mum?
Yes. I used the surname of my mom, and my dad wasn't Italian. So my surname sounds Italian because I choose to use my mom's surname, which is not a very Venezuelan thing.
Why did you do that?
Because I love how it sounds. I have to be honest. And for aesthetic reasons. And also because my mom was a very feminist artist.
Oh, right.
Very committed with...
she was an artist, was she?
She was a sculptor.
Oh, really?
Sculptor.
Sculptor, yeah.
And then, yes, I know for her was quite important to... She used to say, one day you will be someone and you will be the daughter of your dad.
Okay.
And then the first time I could choose my surname, because I was signing an article for a magazine, I said, let's use Tofano. And since then, I'm Carla Tofano. But then, that's my story.
Okay.
What's yours?
Okay. So the father that brought me up mainly is an Englishman, and he's my dad. He put in the effort. He's the one that brought us up, gave us our values. But My birth father's from Naples, and I got a DNA test recently. Really, I came out 41% Italian, which was interesting. Have you ever done that?
No, never. Why did you do that?
A friend who was trying to track down his birth father did it, and he kept encouraging me. A painter friend called Stuart, and he keeps saying you should sign up with this. You know, you may find out information.
You look Italian.
Well, that's because I'm 41%, I guess. So they got divorced when I was very young, so I haven't really met the guy. Well, I have, but I was just too young. And yeah, my birth name was completely Italian. And
it would be very interesting, in this market to be Carlo Lombardi.
Yeah, from a marketing point of view, maybe. I have thought there's a Scottish painter called Jack Vetriano, and he wasn't selling any work at all, and then he changed his name to his grandfather's name, which is Vetriano, and he started selling all of a sudden, and now he sells for millions.
So maybe in the future we start seeing you as Carlo Lombardi.
Possibly, yeah. Possibly. But I just found out, my loyalty is with my father who brought me up. So my loyalty is completely with him.
He's like my Tofano. With my mom, with my feminist mom.
Yeah, exactly. He's my dad. There's no questions around that. But at the same time, half of my genes come from somewhere else, and it does affect you whether you want it to or not, and your appearance, and So, and through this process of the DNA thing, I actually found out recently. I'm distantly. We don't know exactly how yet. It may be quite a close relative. I'm related to this painter called Joseph M. Lombardi, and he was a portrait painter from Naples, and he got a scholarship to the US, and he painted people like Roosevelt, the president.
Wow, this is super interesting.
I know, it's interesting. He's got paintings in like major museums in the US. So I didn't think I had any artists in the family, but
Naples have a huge reputation for being a very artistic city.
Yeah.
In all senses.
Yeah, Caravaggio.
Music, art, actresses, actors, many very prolific artists from Italy come from Naples.
Right, so it's quite a creative place.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah. So that's my story. Thank you for asking about that.
And to finish, because we are getting to the end of this conversation, how did the lockdown change your process of
making art? I couldn't work with models. I couldn't get them into the studio, so I had to work more from photography. And during the first lockdown in April, I did like quite a strange painting of a kind of riot scene of like an imaginative composition with people fighting Star Wars kind of machines. So that was all from photography that I found on the internet. So I think the way it changed my process, because I was denied access to real people to paint them, and because like everyone else, I was just locked in my studio. The source reference material, I had to find it from the internet, basically. So that one painting, I can pinpoint that one with regard to change in process, because it wasn't done with any of my own reference material, which is unusual because I usually take my own photographs and paint people that I meet. So yeah.
And from an emotional place, how did you feel during all this process? Did you feel creative? Did you feel stuck? How was it?
Yeah, I think during the first lockdown, it did obviously affect everyone emotionally, right? And I didn't feel as good as I normally do. I don't think it affected my work that much, and I was still kept productive. And as a painter anyway, it's not like you work in an office. Your lifestyle doesn't change that much as a painter in lockdown, apart from not being able to meet friends and things. But so it didn't. But this second lockdown, I feel a lot less productive and a lot less motivated, which isn't good. I'm happy. Well, fingers crossed it's going to be the last lockdown. So
yeah, because it's also the accumulation.
It becomes exhausting, right? Yeah. And it had a novelty aspect to it, the first lockdown, but this one's just.
It's just like, too much, too long.
What about you? Do you know?
Yeah, I feel very productive, and I'm very happy. I feel like it's a gift all the time I have had.
Right.
But I also feel like the second lockdown, has a little bit more anxious or
Yeah.
a little bit more oppressed, the
Yeah.
feeling of not being able to really do
Yeah.
whatever you would like to do.
Yeah.
But hopefully it's all for the better. I
Yeah.
mean, we are growing in many ways. I feel like it's been from an emotional, even spiritual point of view, it's been good. For me, it's been good.
Oh,
yeah.
Good.
Not for you?
I think it's been good and bad, both. A mixture. Neither one nor the other, really.
Do you live alone?
Yeah.
Because that maybe is a little bit too tough.
Yeah, it's pretty tough, but...
But not for a monk.
I think...
Not for a monk.
No, I think on that note, that's probably... yeah, true, yeah.
Good thing.
I don't think it was... I've had it a lot easier than some people, I think. You know, I've got nothing to complain about, but I wouldn't want to keep doing this every year. You know, I know I meet some people and they kind of enjoy lockdown. I don't think that's me, but you know, I've gotten through it and
I did. I have to be
Did
honest.
you?
I
Really?
am enjoying it. And in few years, where do you see your art? Where do you see yourself?
where, like, physically or with my
Physically,
art.
or in terms of style, or
Yeah,
take the question wherever you want.
right. It's very difficult to say, isn't it? I just hope I keep on working and keep having the opportunity to work and keep selling and keep making a living from it. Really, that's all I hope. In terms of style, I don't think you can kind of predict where your work's going. It's probably the same with you, right? And this sort of interviewing thing, you don't know where it'll take you. Maybe in 5 years you'll have like your own TV show or something. You never know.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah. That would be great. Carlo Lombardi.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All
it
right.
was a huge pleasure. I really, really enjoyed this journey through your art. I hope you enjoy it as well, and see you soon. Thank you so much for staying with us this far. I hope you enjoy that. And if that's the case, I would like to suggest you to enjoy the rest of our content. Also, if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell so you can get notifications every time we share a new episode with all of you.